Welcome, fellow deep divers. Have you ever wondered if there's like a secret code behind why we humans squabble, cooperate, or even struggle to live in harmony with our own planet? Today we're embarking on a really fascinating journey, a deep dive into the science of human tensions.
Yeah.
Our guide for this exploration is an AI-driven scientific study, and it offers a truly unique perspective on human conflict and cooperation, giving us insights that feel almost, well, alien in a good way.
That's a great way to put it, actually. Our mission today really is to uncover how artificial intelligence can not only analyze, but maybe truly comprehend and illuminate the complex forces shaping human existence, from the thoughts flickering inside our individual minds all the way up to the grand dynamics of nations.
Wow.
The ultimate goal, as the source material suggests, is to sort of map out pathways towards greater human flourishing and a more balanced coexistence, not just with each other, but crucially with the natural world that sustains us.
It's an ambitious, incredibly relevant journey, and you're with us every step of the way. As we navigate this material, we'll first peel back the layers of tension. Psychological, sociological, philosophical, historical.
Layer.
Then we'll consider the critical role of rules in our societies. Finally, we'll dive headfirst into AI's rapidly expanding influence, exploring its immense potential for good, alongside its, well, significant challenges as it reshapes our shared future. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
The core idea here is using AI to untangle the complexities of human tensions. When you think about something as messy and, well, human as conflict, why on earth is AI, of all things, uniquely suited to help us understand it?
Well, what's truly remarkable, I think, is AI's almost superhuman capacity for processing vast amounts of data and spotting patterns that would just be invisible to us.
Right. Just too much data for one person.
Exactly. Imagine trying to track every tweet, every news article, every economic indicator, and every physiological response. Simultaneously, it's impossible for a human brain. But AI can do it. From the micro level, like the neurochemical shifts in our brains when we're stressed, all the way up to macro level international negotiations, AI offers a genuinely new lens. It helps us systematically deconstruct this incredibly intricate web of human conflict and cooperation. It's almost like AI can think about human thinking in a way, analyzing our collective behaviors at a scale that's just, well, mind-boggling.
Thinking about thinking. Wow.
And that's precisely why understanding human tensions through this technological insight is so paramount, for building a more balanced future for all of us.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more then. When we talk about human tension, it's clearly not just one thing. It comes from many different places, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Let's start right inside our heads and bodies. What are the most fundamental psychological and biological roots of individual tension that this study points to?
Well, at its very core, individual human tension is essentially a psychological state of internal conflict, a kind of mental tug of war or just plain uncertainty. Yeah. You know that uncomfortable feeling you get? It usually triggers a strong desire to make it stop, to find some resolution. And that mental state often shows up physically. Think about it. That tightness or stiffness in your neck and shoulders, or the throbbing of a tension headache. These aren't just in your head, they're real physical manifestations.
Oh, I certainly know that feeling after a long day.
Exactly. We all do. And the source material really emphasizes how psychological factors like stress, anxiety, and even depression are directly linked to these physical symptoms.
Right.
But it's not just internal. External factors, especially our work environments, like doing constant repetitive movements, being under immense time pressure, or feeling like you have no control, these things contribute significantly to musculoskeletal issues and muscle tension.
Makes sense.
And what's fascinating really is the bidirectional relationship. Psychological conflict causes physical tension, but then that physical discomfort intensifies the psychological drive to resolve the original conflict.
So it feeds itself.
Precisely. Creating this loop that can be really hard to break if you don't address it.
So if AI is so good at data, could it actually help us spot this tension cycle early on before it gets bad?
Absolutely. That's a key potential application. Imagine an AI system that could integrate physiological data from wearables, things like muscle tension readings or heart rate variability, with psychological assessments, perhaps by analyzing the sentiment and your communication patterns. The potential here is incredible. It could identify and even predict individual tension escalation before it becomes debilitating.
That would be huge.
It really would. That opens the door for truly proactive intervention, which could make a huge difference in individual well-being. But, and this is crucial, the study also stresses that for a complete picture, the AI also needs to look at the bigger issues.
Like what?
Like socioeconomic structures. Because individual tension is rarely just about the individual, you know? It's connected to the world around us.
That's a great point about needing to look beyond the individual. Now, how do these personal tensions scale up to affect entire groups and societies? This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah, this is where we see the ripple effect.
Yeah.
The study points out that one of the primary drivers of social conflict is the unequal distribution of resources, opportunities, and power among different groups.
Yeah.
Think about Karl Marx's ideas, for instance. He focused on the class struggle between the haves and the have-nots, right? The people who own the factories versus the people who work in them.
Sure.
He argued that the tension comes from the surplus value, basically, the profit extracted from workers' labor after their wages are paid. And this often bubbles up into things like labor strikes, which we still see today.
So it's not just about money then. Is it broader than that?
Oh, much broader. Not at all just money. Cultural and religious diversity, while incredibly enriching, can also be a powerful source of tension. Different values, beliefs, and customs can lead to genuine misunderstandings, hostility, or even violence. Historical religious conflicts are a stark reminder of that.
Yeah.
And then there are power imbalances within societies. Think authoritarian regimes, corrupt governments, or just a lack of political voice for citizens. These things breed resentment and can ignite struggles for democracy. Disputes over political ideologies or even who gets to use what resources can deeply polarize societies.
So our identities, the groups we belong to, these are also big factors in creating tension.
Absolutely. Social identity plays a pivotal role. Group conflicts often stem from favoring our own group, in-group favoritism and discriminating against others, the out-group, especially when we perceive some kind of threat to our group's identity. And here's the paradox. The very things that bind a group together, shared experiences, rituals, a common identity, can unintentionally create the conditions for tension with other groups, even organized violence.
Really? How does that work?
Well, think about how shared traumatic experiences can forge incredibly strong bonds, right? Or how routine rituals build large-scale identities, fostering trust and cooperation within that group.
Okay, I see. So in-group loyalty can be a good thing for the group, but also potentially dangerous for relations between groups.
Exactly. It's a real two-sided coin.
Yeah.
And you add to this mix basic human psychology. We often hold contradictory thoughts, which leads to something called cognitive dissonance.
Right, that uncomfortable feeling.
That's the one. It's that mental tug of war when what you believe clashes with what you're doing or with new information. When individuals or groups are really invested in an idea, they might passionately defend it, actively pushing away contradictory information rather than dealing with the discomfort rationally.
Stubbornness, basically.
In a way, yes, but driven by that psychological discomfort. An AI system here could really help. Potentially. It could model not only what's happening inside groups, but also the interactions between them.
How so?
It could show how strengthening internal bonds can unfortunately heighten antagonism towards outsiders. AI could even spot patterns of cognitive dissonance in public conversations or online discourse. Highlighting where stubborn adherence to beliefs is preventing real constructive discussion. It's like having an impartial observer pointing out where we're digging our heels in, even when it's not rational.
That could be incredibly useful, but also maybe a bit unsettling.
Definitely both.
Given all this complexity, how have thinkers throughout history, from ancient philosophers to modern theorists, tried to make sense of conflict and tension? What have they taught us that AI can perhaps build upon?
Oh, it's a really rich history. The ancient Greeks, for instance, had quite contrasting views. You had Plato imagining an ideal society free from discord, seeing conflict as an imperfection we could maybe overcome.
The idealist view.
Right. But then you had Aristotle, who thought conflict was just an inherent part of human nature, stemming from our diverse interests and desires. Can't avoid it.
More pragmatic.
Exactly. And Heraclitus famously declared, "War is the father of all things," seeing conflict as a fundamental, even creative force. The Stoics, on the other hand, focused inward on cultivating inner strength to mitigate personal discord.
Interesting, right?
And this fundamental debate, is conflict unavoidable or can it be transcended, still shapes how we think about solutions today. It influences what we even ask AI to do about conflict.
So these ancient questions are still very much with us. What about more modern takes on conflict?
Well, modern conflict theories often build on these foundations. Some, like those influenced by Plato and Hobbes, highlight power differences and inherent inequality as central to conflict.
Okay.
Others, like Max Weber, emphasized social action, the idea that individuals' actions are driven by their interpretations of social situations. That offered a different lens from, say, Marx's focus on class struggle and purely economic forces.
So different levels of analysis.
Right. And in the realm of international relations, we see similar opposing views playing out. You have realism, for instance, which paints a picture of a world where nation-states are the main actors, driven by self-preservation, always seeking power, often military power, in what they see as a fundamentally anarchic, chaotic system. They tend to view international cooperation as temporary, maybe even naive.
A pretty bleak view.
It can be. Liberalism, conversely, emphasizes the importance of global connections, trade, technology, shared interests, arguing that cooperation is actually in every state's best interest.
The optimist view.
Perhaps. They believe international rules and organizations are essential for fostering that peace and cooperation.
And can we see these big theories playing out in a real historical event? Does this study give an example?
Absolutely. The U.S. Civil War is a powerful, tragic example mentioned. It wasn't just one disagreement. It was a collision of fundamental conflicts over slavery, states' rights, federal authority, deep, deep divisions. It vividly illustrates how deep-seated philosophical and political disagreements can spiral into widespread, devastating conflict. Understanding these historical patterns helps us see what AI might be able to predict, or maybe help us navigate in the future.
That brings us to a fascinating, maybe even provocative question the study touches on. If we look at humanity's deeper relationship with itself and the natural world, are we fundamentally predator or prey? What does this study reveal about our drive for control?
It's a profound question, isn't it? And the source material dives right into it. First, let's look at our innate drive for control. There's something called the dominance behavioral system, or DBS.
DBS?
Yeah, I think of it as a kind of built-in biological guidance system that motivates us to gain control over social influence and material things, resources, status. It's seen as critical for survival and reproduction, evolutionarily speaking.
Yep.
People with a strong dominance motivation are often really attuned to power dynamics. They might crave admiration, wealth, influence.
So is this drive always a bad thing? Or does it have a helpful side too, like leadership?
Exactly, that's the duality of it. The study emphasizes this. When this dominance drive is coupled with warmth and empathy, it can manifest in really pro-social ways, like forming strong alliances, leading a team effectively, fostering cooperation.
Good leadership.
Right. But when it's mixed with hostility or a lack of empathy, it can turn antisocial. Manipulation, intimidation, aggression.
Okay.
The study also references social dominance theory, or SDT, which takes this to a societal level. It suggests that pretty much any human society with enough resources and economic surplus will naturally form group-based hierarchies.
Always.
That's the theory. And these hierarchies are maintained through things like systemic discrimination, individual discrimination, and behavioral patterns that often get justified by what are called legitimizing myths.
Legitimizing myths, like stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. Think about how certain historical narratives or societal beliefs are used to explain and often justify why some groups have more power or resources than others. SDT also notes that statistically, males tend to have higher social dominance orientation and often function as sort of hierarchy enforcers.
So how could AI help us understand that line between good leadership, functional dominance, and problematic, exploitative dominance?
This is where AI's analytical power gets really interesting. It could potentially analyze outcomes to differentiate between the two. Was the dominance used for the collective good, or primarily for exploitation or discrimination? It's about looking at the real-world impact on everyone involved.
I live the result.
Exactly. AI could also map out these ideological structures by sifting through massive amounts of cultural data, text, media, etc., to spot patterns of those legitimizing myths and see how they correlate with real social inequalities. It's about seeing the hidden threads that connect our beliefs to our societal structures.
It's fascinating, shifting gears slightly, how victimhood is not just an objective state, but something that can be perceived and even actively constructed in society. How does that play into these societal dynamics?
It's a huge factor, actually. Victimhood, as the study highlights, is very much a socially constructed phenomenon. Societal agreement and, crucially, power dynamics significantly influence who gets recognized as a victim.
So it's not automatic.
Not at all. There's often an idea of an ideal victim, someone who perfectly fits a narrative of blameless suffering. This can contrast sharply with certain theories, like victim precipitation theory, which unfortunately sometimes shift blame onto the victim and overlook fundamental power imbalances, often leading to victim blaming.
And that perception of victimhood, that has a powerful pull in society, right?
No,
morally, politically.
Oh, absolutely. It's a potent force in shaping morality and politics. Different political viewpoints often identify different groups as victims, which can really deepen societal divisions. The source also brings up an interesting evolutionary perspective that humans might be historically more prey than predator, which could give victimhood its profound psychological power.
More prey than predator. Interesting thought.
It is. There's also the philosophical problem of other minds, the inherent difficulty we have in truly grasping the hidden extent of another person's suffering. We can't feel what they feel.
Right.
And sometimes, unfortunately, perceived victimhood can even be strategically used to license selfishness, allowing individuals or groups to justify actions that might otherwise be seen as unfair or harmful.
Like using it as an excuse.
Potentially, yes. An AI, by analyzing public discourse, social media, news narratives could identify patterns of this strategic framing of victimhood. It could correlate these narratives with power shifts or how resources are allocated, but it would have to go beyond just noting the claims.
How so?
It would need to dig into the underlying power structures, the historical context, potential biases in the narratives themselves to offer a more comprehensive, maybe more objective understanding.
And how does this internal drive for control and these shifting perceptions of victimhood connect to humanity's relationship with the natural world, our planetary footprint? The study used a strong term there.
It did. Super predator. This is where the analysis really zooms out. The study characterizes humans this way because we kill adult prey at exceptionally high and crucially unsustainable rates, up to 14 times higher than other predators in some cases.
14 times. Wow.
Yeah. We're actively altering global ecological and evolutionary processes, and this rapid, accelerating predatory behavior isn't just instinct, it's attributed to our cultural and technological advancements.
Like what?
Things like the division of labor, global trade networks, and advanced killing technology. These have essentially removed the natural energetic costs and risks associated with traditional hunting. We've become maybe too good at it, too efficient.
So our ingenuity has actually made us ecologically problematic in this sense.
Precisely. Our preference for large prey, for example, has significantly altered natural landscapes and populations. And critically, the study points out that humans cannot functionally replace natural carnivores in providing essential ecological services. We take, but we don't give back in the same way ecologically.
Right.
And there's a dangerous feedback loop identified. When a prey species becomes rare, its economic value often goes up, which paradoxically drives even more aggressive exploitation.
So scarcity makes it worse.
Often, yes. This directly links human predatory behavior to resource scarcity, which, perhaps unsurprisingly, is identified as a primary cause of human-to-human conflict. Think disputes over fishing rights, land, water.
Makes total sense.
An AI model would be absolutely crucial here for simulating these incredibly complex ecological socioeconomic feedback loops. It could help us predict future conflict hotspots driven by environmental issues and guide more sustainable resource management policies. It's a powerful tool to understand how our actions on the planet directly fuel tensions among ourselves.
So whether it's individual stress or global conflict over resources, are there fundamental human behaviors or ways of thinking biases maybe that contribute to these tensions universally across the board?
Definitely. The study points to some core patterns. Aggression and dominance hierarchies, for example, are observed across many species. They often serve a primal purpose. Minimizing actual fighting over limited resources by establishing a clear pecking order. Rank matters.
Okay, that's biological. But what about our thinking?
Right. Humans complicate things significantly with our unique cognitive quirks. Our decision-making is heavily influenced by various cognitive biases that often, maybe unintentionally, fan the flames of conflict.
Can you give us a quick example or two?
Sure. Think about confirmation bias. We naturally seek out and favor information that confirms what we already believe. We ignore or downplay stuff that challenges us.
We all do that sometimes.
Absolutely. Or in-group, out-group bias, our strong tendency to favor our own group and view outsiders with suspicion, sometimes seeing them as a threat. And another big one is reactive devaluation.
Reactive devaluation. What's that?
It's automatically dismissing or devaluing an idea, a proposal, anything really, simply because it comes from someone or some group we see as an adversary, regardless of the actual merit of the idea itself.
Wow. So it's like our brains are actively working against rational compromise sometimes.
In many ways, yes, it
Yeah.
can feel like that. And here's the kicker. These individual biases don't just stay individual, they get amplified in group settings.
How so?
Well, they can lead to collective irrationality and even aggression. Confirmation bias, for example, can fuel group polarization, creating echo chambers where everyone just reinforces each other's existing views, often making them more extreme.
Right.
And that in-group, out-group bias, the us versus them mentality, can quickly morph into something called groupthink.
Ah, groupthink. I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's where well-intentioned groups end up making irrational or even harmful decisions because they prioritize harmony and conformity within the group over critical thinking and objective reality. Sometimes they ignore ethical concerns or even instigate destructive actions.
Even smart people can fall into that trap.
Absolutely. That's one of the key insights. Even groups of very intelligent people can make really bad decisions if the group dynamics aren't healthy. An AI model, potentially, could be designed to identify these cognitive and social amplification mechanisms.
How would that work?
Imagine it acting as a kind of impartial mirror, highlighting these distortions, the biases, the groupthink tendencies to human decision makers in real time. It could push them towards more rational, evidence-based outcomes. It's not about replacing human judgment, but giving us a clearer picture of our own collective blind spots.
That could be powerful. All these tensions and biases really point to one crucial aspect of human society.
Yeah.
The need for rules. The imperative of rules. How have rules come about, from ancient codes all the way to modern ethics?
Rules are essentially humanity's grand attempt to manage all this inherent messiness, right? We can trace the origins of formal legal systems way back. Think ancient Roman law with its focus on codified civil law or English common law, which developed based on precedent previous court decisions. You have ancient examples like the Code of Hammurabi, incredibly detailed laws etched in stone, or the 12 tablets in Rome, or Confucian codes in China.
Right, foundational stuff.
Exactly. Fast forward to the medieval period in Europe, and you see a synthesis, a blend of Christian theology and rediscovered Roman law, which profoundly shaped modern legal thought, modern jurisprudence. This also gave rise to natural law theory.
Natural law. What's the core idea there?
It's the idea that there are inherent universal moral principles, laws derived from nature or a divine source, maybe that are discoverable through human reason. Like the near universal understanding that killing is wrong, for example.
So we're talking about rules that are almost wired into us, even before we write them down, like a moral compass.
Precisely. That's the perspective. It suggests that many of our written laws and social norms are actually codifications, formal expressions of these underlying, perhaps even biologically rooted moral intuitions.
Interesting. Could AI help map that?
Potentially, yes. An AI could analyze legal codes and cultural norms across societies to map how these maybe universal moral principles get translated into specific culturally dependent rules and perhaps identify where discrepancies or conflicts arise.
Fascinating. And then came the Enlightenment.
Right. The Enlightenment brought a huge emphasis on reason, individual rights, the idea of a social contract between the governed and the government. Alongside this came legal positivism, which basically argues that a law's validity comes from its source who made it, the proper procedure, not necessarily its moral content. Law and morality are separate things. This created and still creates an interesting tension between universal moral ideals and the often imperfect, sometimes exclusionary application of actual laws in practice. Think about laws that historically excluded women or certain minorities.
Right, the ideal versus the reality.
Exactly. And the core insight here, emerging from fields like evolutionary psychology, is that our sense of what's right and wrong isn't just a cultural invention learned from scratch. There's likely a deep evolutionary layer to it. Our biology seems to provide the necessary conditions for ethical behavior, the ability to anticipate consequences, make value judgments, choose between different actions.
That's fascinating. But if rules are so essential for order, why do they often seem to fail us? Why are they, as you put it, a double-edged sword?
It's truly a paradox, isn't it? Social norms, these shared standards of acceptable behavior, are absolutely vital for social order, cohesion, and cooperation. They help individuals know what's expected, avoid punishment, and generally keep purely selfish behavior in check.
So they provide predictability.
Yes. And while you might think people follow rules just to avoid getting into trouble, rational choice theory norms are also often self-enforcing patterns. They're driven by shared expectations and often our intrinsic preferences for things like fairness and honesty. We want to follow the rules, often. And humans are unique in that we've built entire institutions, police, courts, etc., specifically to enforce these rules, which is absolutely critical for enabling large-scale cooperation beyond small family groups.
So rules keep us in line, allow complex societies, but what's the flip side? Where's the danger?
The double-edged sword aspect comes in because while rules provide stability, a rigid, unthinking adherence to them can actually stifle adaptability and innovation. Society changes, contexts change.
Right.
Sometimes holding on to outdated rules can lead to inefficient or even harmful behaviors when those rules are no longer serving a useful purpose, or worse, when they actively cause harm.
And people break rules all the time anyway, right?
Oh, constantly. Rule violation is surprisingly common. It often happens when personal goals clash with established norms, or when people find a little moral wiggle room, ways to justify selfish or rule-breaking behavior to themselves and others.
Ah, the justifications we make.
Exactly. And this is where those cognitive biases we talked about earlier, confirmation bias, in-group, out-group bias, reactive devaluation and phenomena like groupthink, really fuel rule-breaking, conflict, and sometimes even the elimination of entire cultural norms. They show us that human decisions, even around seemingly clear rules, are often far from rational.
So how could AI potentially help with this paradox of rules?
Well, a sophisticated AI model could try to account for both the external incentives and punishments for following or breaking rules and the internal psychological mechanisms, the biases, the motivations.
Okay.
It could potentially identify situations where sticking rigidly to existing rules is becoming detrimental and maybe suggest adaptive strategies or even help design context-sensitive rules that can flex or change based on the specific situation.
Adaptive rules.
It's a possibility. And imagine AI analyzing communication patterns within organizations or societies to spot early warning signs of cognitive distortions or groupthink that might lead to rule-breaking or conflict escalation, predicting problems before they blow up.
And what about the environmental dimension? You mentioned our impact as super predators. Nature seems to have its own unwritten rules that we often ignore, leading to more tension, right?
Absolutely. Ecological balance, such as it exists, is governed by these deep, unwritten rules that are far older than any human law or institution. When humanity exerts too much pressure through pollution, habitat destruction, overexploitation, it leads to resource depletion and environmental degradation.
And that causes conflict.
Directly increases the potential for conflict, yes. This is made much worse by our current role as unsustainable super predators. What's particularly insightful here, and something the study highlights, is traditional ecological knowledge, or tech.
Tech.
Yes, the knowledge held by indigenous peoples around the world. They often possess a deep, nuanced, often millennia-long understanding of local ecosystems and have developed truly sustainable practices based on long-term observation, emphasizing concepts like kinship and reciprocity with nature.
So an approach that's fundamentally different from how modern industrial societies often operate.
Yeah, precisely. The study points to a fundamental disconnect between nature's unwritten rules and the operating principles of many modern societies, which often prioritize short-term economic gain, externalize environmental costs, and treat nature as a bundle of resources to be exploited. This disconnect is a critical, though often overlooked factor in human tensions.
All right.
That's why frameworks like international environmental law, or IEL, and its principles like the precautionary principle, sustainable development, common but differentiated responsibilities are so important, even if enforcement is often weak.
Can you give a specific example of this link between environment and tension?
Sure, think about water scarcity. It's a potent example that is already directly driving international tensions and disputes over major shared river basins like the Tigris and Euphrates in the Middle East, the Mekong in Southeast Asia, the Nile in Africa, or the Helmand River between Afghanistan and Iran.
Water.
It's a real and growing risk. This creates a clear causal chain. Human activities, often driven by our super predator tendencies and short-term thinking, degrade the environment, which leads to resource scarcity, like water, which in turn fuels human-to-human tensions and conflict.
And AI's role here.
An AI model would be invaluable for integrating environmental monitoring data, like satellite imagery showing water levels or deforestation, with socio-political indicators to predict these eco-conflict hotspots. It could also model the long-term consequences of unsustainable practices, really hammering home the need for what the study calls adaptive governance systems that can learn and respond effectively to these complex, interconnected environmental and social challenges.
This is incredibly complex. It really raises an important question. How does AI truly tie all these different layers together? From our individual thoughts and biases to societal structures, global politics, and the planet itself.
Yeah. It's a lot to juggle. The source material presents this really neat conceptual schematic, almost like a map, showing AI as potentially acting as a central nexus, literally the connecting point for understanding all these interacting systems and potentially intervening where needed.
A nexus.
Behavioral AI, which is a specialized branch, focuses specifically on understanding, predicting, and sometimes responding to human behavior by analyzing these vast streams of data. It learns what's normal behavior in a system, detects anomalies, and adapts.
Right.
AI's capacity to identify really complex, subtle patterns means it can mirror and sometimes reinforce cultural trends, anticipate societal shifts, maybe even spark cultural innovation. That ability we mentioned to think about human thinking and its patterns at scale really represents a profound form of metacognition on our collective behavior.
So it's not just crunching numbers in isolation, it's seeing the deeper game, the connections between everything.
Exactly. That's the potential. In societal dynamics and conflict, for example, AI is already being used experimentally and sometimes operationally to analyze social media sentiment, news reports, economic indicators, satellite imagery, all to try and predict potential crisis areas or identify early warning signs of instability or violence.
That sounds useful, but also a bit scary.
It absolutely comes with a significant ethical responsibility. If AI can predict behavior or social trends, it could also potentially be misused to manipulate them. So robust, thoughtful, ethical guidelines and governance structures are absolutely crucial to ensure AI is used for human benefit, not for control or exploitation.
That leads us perfectly to the positive contributions. What are some of the really beneficial applications of AI for human flourishing that the study points to? How can it actually reduce some of these tensions we've been talking about?
The potential upside is vast, really. In healthcare, AI is already revolutionizing things. It's leading to improved diagnostics, more personalized treatment plans, earlier disease detection, tracking disease spread, even accelerating drug discovery.
And mental health, too.
Yes, definitely. Think about AI-powered chatbots or virtual therapists providing immediate, on-demand support for children and teens, offering personalized therapy programs. This could drastically reduce individual anxiety and stress, making support much more accessible.
That's huge. What about other areas?
In education, AI enables truly personalized learning experiences. Intelligent tutoring systems like Squirrel AI or Dreambox can adapt to a student's individual pace and learning style, providing real-time feedback and identifying learning gaps early on. It also expands accessibility through tools like text-to-speech or instant translation.
Okay. And what about for larger-scale conflicts between groups or nations?
For conflict resolution and peace building, AI has immense potential. It could help predict and prevent conflicts by analyzing those vast data sets we talked about. It might assist in mediating disputes by providing unbiased analysis, maybe real-time translation during sensitive negotiations, or even running simulations of different negotiation outcomes. It can also help counter the spread of misinformation and hate speech, which often fuel conflict, and optimize the distribution of aid after a conflict to make recovery more effective. All of these reduce critical friction points.
And the economy.
In economic prosperity and innovation, generative AI is accelerating discovery across scientific fields. It can reduce barriers to expertise by helping less experienced workers perform better. It allows for hyper-personalization of services at scale. All this creates economic spillovers that can potentially uplift communities and reduce inequality-driven tensions.
So the big picture is AI augmenting human capabilities and making complex systems run more smoothly.
In essence, yes, that's the beneficial vision. It can optimize systems and reduce many sources of tension. But, and this is a really important but raised in the material, we have to be thoughtful, these benefits aren't automatically distributed equally. If access to powerful AI tools and their benefits is tied to existing digital infrastructure or economic means, it could inadvertently make existing inequalities worse, creating entirely new kinds of social tensions between the AI haves and the AI have-nots. Equity is key.
Okay, we've covered the immense potential, the bright side. Now let's be realistic and turn to the shadows. What are the significant challenges and potential downsides of AI, the so-called dark side?
It's absolutely crucial to look at this squarely. First, there are significant risks around how AI learns and operates. AI algorithms, when trained on biased data sets, which often reflect our own societal biases, can learn and even amplify those biases.
Examples.
We've seen this leading to unfair or discriminatory outcomes in things like automated recruiting systems, loan applications, even facial recognition technology misidentifying certain demographic groups.
Okay, bias is a big one. What else?
There's the legitimate anxiety about job displacement as AI takes over more cognitive and routine tasks. This can create widespread economic insecurity and social tension about the future of work. And critically, there's a risk that over-reliance on AI for information or decision-making could diminish human critical thinking skills over time.
And personal connection.
Yes, the rise of sophisticated AI companions also brings the risk of increased social isolation for some, or unhealthy emotional dependence on AI systems. There's a concern it could potentially lead to empathy atrophy, a reduced capacity for empathy in real-world human relationships if our primary interactions become mediated by AI, leading to unrealistic expectations of people.
So it's not just about what AI does, but what it changes in us and our relationships.
Exactly. Then there's the very real risk of manipulation and misinformation, which directly threatens individual autonomy and democratic processes. AI can generate incredibly convincing fake text, images, videos, deepfakes that can be used to propagate disinformation, perhaps during election campaigns. AI-powered social bots can manipulate public opinion online at scale. There's a danger it could subtly constrain human experience by limiting the options we're shown or manipulating our decision-making paths online, potentially diminishing our individual self-determination without us even realizing it.
That's worrying.
It is, and we can't ignore its environmental footprint. Training these massive AI models and powering the data centers they run on requires substantial amounts of energy and water, contributing significantly to carbon emissions.
I hadn't thought much about that.
And the mining of raw materials needed for AI hardware, things like cobalt, lithium, can exacerbate environmental degradation and sometimes cause social instability and conflict in the resource-rich regions where they're extracted. So it indirectly contributes back to resource conflict.
Wow. Okay, so what about governing all this?
Finally, yes, there's the huge challenge of governance. If AI development and deployment aren't thoughtfully regulated, it risks reinforcing those biases, eroding public trust if systems are opaque or unfair, and could definitely be misused by authoritarian regimes for mass surveillance or social control.
That's what's needed.
We need proactive approaches. Things like mandatory ethics impact statements before deploying AI systems, treating data with respect for human dignity and privacy, designing AI systems that are understandable or explainable to the extent possible, and establishing clear lines of human ownership and accountability for AI outcomes. Someone needs to be responsible.
Right.
The critical point the study makes is that AI's challenging aspects often don't create problems out of thin air. They tend to amplify pre-existing human tensions, biases, and vulnerabilities. So robust governance frameworks aren't just nice to have, they're absolutely essential. Because ultimately, how AI is designed, deployed, and overseen must be guided by human-centered values and ethical considerations. It's as much about the leader behind the tech as the tech itself.
It's clear that AI is going to have this incredibly complex, multi-layered impact on us and the planet. So how does AI truly connect all these different aspects, individual psychology, societal dynamics, global ecosystems, into one cohesive picture? How does that nexus idea work?
Yeah, the study offers this really helpful conceptual schematic visualizing AI as that central nexus, literally the connecting point for understanding these interlocking systems, and importantly, seeing the feedback loops between them. It breaks it down into 4 main interconnected layers.
Okay, layer 1.
At the individual human micro level, AI takes in all sorts of personal data, behavioral patterns, emotional expressions maybe from text or voice, physiological data from wearables. This can lead to outputs like personalized experiences, think tailored news feeds or recommendations, medical diagnoses, maybe even tools to help modulate impulse control or manage stress.
Yeah, feedback.
The feedback loop can be wonderfully positive. Enhanced well-being, improved learning outcomes. But the potential negative feedback is also there. Emotional dependence on AI, maybe that empathy atrophy we talked about, erosion of critical thinking, or feeling like our autonomy is constrained by algorithms nudging us constantly.
Okay, makes sense. How does that scale up?
Moving up to the community and societal meso level, AI processes broader data streams, social media trends, news coverage, economic indicators, cultural data, like art or literature.
Right.
The outputs here can be things like cultural imitation, AI learning and replicating styles, or innovation, AI generating novel ideas, tools for fraud prevention, maybe systems designed to identify and reduce bias in hiring or lending, or highlighting social inequities.
And the feedback loops there.
Positive feedback could be greater social cohesion, maybe boosted economic prosperity, but the negative feedback loops are significant. Amplified societal biases if the AI isn't carefully designed, job displacement causing unrest, the rapid spread of misinformation undermining trust, and even targeted political manipulation.
Okay, then the global level.
Then, at the global and geopolitical macro level, AI takes in inputs like satellite imagery, tracking troop movements or environmental changes, international relations data, historical conflict databases.
Do what?
The outputs could be conflict prediction and prevention tools, mediation support systems for diplomats, strategies for optimizing post-conflict recovery, and aid distribution. The positive feedback here is potential peace building and greater global stability.
And the negative.
The darker side includes risks like AI being used for terrorism, e.g. coordinating drone swarms, the development of lethal autonomous weapon systems, killer robots, or AI exacerbating international resource conflicts by, say, optimizing exploitation for one nation over another.
And the final layer, the planet.
Finally, we have the crucial environmental planetary impact layer. Here, AI integrates data on environmental degradation, climate change patterns, resource scarcity, perhaps even incorporating traditional ecological knowledge databases. Outputs could be enhanced environmental monitoring, predicting pollution events or natural disasters, supporting sustainable resource management, optimizing farming or fishing, improving recycling systems. The positive feedback loop is movement towards ecological restoration and balance.
But AI has its own footprint.
But the significant negative feedback loop, as we discussed, is AI's own substantial carbon footprint, its heavy energy and water consumption, and how the mining for its components can contribute back to environmental degradation and resource conflicts. It's part of the problem, too.
So it's really an all-encompassing picture, with AI sitting right at the center, affecting and being affected by everything else.
Exactly. And woven through all of these interactions, the schematic emphasizes this overarching theme of responsible design and human oversight. It underscores the absolutely essential role of thoughtful ethical guidelines, transparency, and continuous human intelligence guiding the AI at every level. The biggest takeaway here, I think, is AI's unique potential ability to identify these incredibly complex interdependencies that are often invisible to us. For instance, how individual stress levels in a population might connect systematically to specific work conditions, broader economic inequality, global resource scarcity trends, and even the risk of international conflict.
Seeing the whole system.
Precisely. This positions AI as a potential integrative intelligence that can provide a truly holistic understanding. And by explicitly including the environmental layer and its feedback loops, it really drives home the point that human tensions are deeply, fundamentally intertwined with planetary health. Achieving a balanced universe, as the study puts it, isn't just some lofty philosophical ideal. It's presented as a practical necessity if we want to truly alleviate human tensions and find a sustainable path forward.
That's a powerful vision of integration, connecting everything. So let's wrap this incredible deep dive up by looking forward. What's the best possible scenario for an AI-driven future that the source material envisions? What does it look like to truly build that kind of balanced human-AI coexistence?
Well, a critical part of that best scenario, according to the study, begins right at the foundation. Nurturing healthy children in an AI-infused world. The foundational needs for healthy child development remain timeless, right? Secure attachment to caregivers, warmth, structure, a loving family environment, a positive school experience, supportive community factors like safety, recreation, good role models, diverse cultural exposure.
The basics don't change.
Exactly. AI's ethical role here is seen as augmenting these foundations. It can tailor education to individual needs, spot learning gaps early, provide instant feedback, expand accessibility for kids with disabilities, and as we mentioned, AI chatbots and virtual therapists could potentially offer immediate emotional support and personalized therapy programs for children and teens, making mental health support far more readily available.
But you mentioned the risk of dependence. So the key is AI enhances, but doesn't replace that core human connection.
Exactly right. That's the crucial balance that needs to be struck. There's a very real risk of AI inadvertently eroding genuine human connection, impairing social-emotional development, creating unhealthy emotional dependence, and maybe even dulling empathy if we over-rely on it, especially during formative years.
So the ideal is?
The best scenario, as outlined, is AI enhancing specific aspects like tailored learning support or being a first step for mental health resources, while society actively works to preserve and strengthen those foundational human relationships between children, families, teachers, and peers. This also requires very thoughtful policy and design choices to ensure equitable access.
Right, the digital divide.
And culturally aware AI tools that truly address rather than deepen existing socioeconomic divides. AI should supplement human therapy and family involvement, especially for disadvantaged kids, not become a cheaper substitute that widens the gap.
Okay, so starting with kids, what about leadership and governance?
Next, building the best scenario means leading with wisdom, fostering wise leaders, and good governance in an age increasingly shaped by AI. Good governance itself relies on fundamental principles: accountability, transparency, fairness, inclusiveness, responsiveness, seeking consensus, upholding the rule of law, all supported by active public participation and informed citizens.
And good leaders.
Wise leaders, the study suggests, possess qualities like integrity, foresight, compassion, vision, things AI can't replicate. AI does have the potential, though, to supercharge governance in certain ways.
Oh.
By providing incredibly comprehensive, 360-degree, data-driven insights to help leaders make more informed decisions. By automating routine bureaucratic tasks to improve operational efficiency. It might even help advance inclusion and reduce problematic patterns, for example, by auditing hiring processes for hidden biases.
But there's that flip side for democracy you mentioned earlier, isn't there? The potential for manipulation.
There absolutely is. AI remains a double-edged sword for democracy. It can be used to generate and propagate disinformation during election campaigns, influence public opinion via armies of social bots, and authoritarian regimes could certainly misuse it for widespread surveillance and control.
So what's the ethical path for leaders?
The imperative for leaders is clear. They must prioritize the responsible and ethical deployment of AI within government and society. That means actively ensuring fairness, accountability, transparency, and inclusivity in how AI systems are used. It includes things like demanding clear impact statements before rolling out AI systems, ensuring data dignity, pushing for understandable AI models where possible, and insisting on clear human ownership and responsibility for AI outcomes. The human-in-the-loop approach is crucial here. Meaning AI augments human leaders with powerful data and insights. But human leaders must always provide the ethical judgment, the compassion, the long-term wisdom, and the ultimate accountability that AI currently lacks and maybe always will.
Okay, finally, how do we bring it all together, culture, nature, AI, to live in that harmony?
Finally, yes, achieving that balanced universe means consciously integrating our culture, our relationship with nature, and our use of AI. The study hammers home that achieving ecological balance is inextricably linked to managing human tensions.
Because scarcity causes conflict.
Exactly. Our super predator status and the escalating resource scarcity, it creates like those water scarcity examples leading to international disputes directly cause or exacerbate human conflict. Traditional ecological knowledge, tech, offers profound insights into genuinely sustainable practices, standing in stark contrast to the disconnect from nature's unwritten rules often seen in modern societies focused on short-term economic gain. That's where frameworks like international environmental law and the concept of adaptive governance become vital for managing these complex environmental systems.
And how does AI fit into achieving that environmental harmony? What's its best role?
AI has a potentially pivotal role here, too. Enhancing environmental monitoring, tracking pollution, deforestation, disaster forecasting, supporting sustainable resource management, optimizing agriculture, fisheries, improving the efficiency of recycling systems, BUT.
The footprint again?
The footprint again. We must always be mindful of AI's own significant environmental costs. The energy, the water, the raw materials extraction, which itself contributes back to environmental degradation and potential resource conflict.
So the goal isn't just using AI for green ends, but making AI itself green.
Precisely. The best possible scenario involves AI being intentionally developed and deployed with a net positive environmental impact. It should actively contribute to ecological restoration and sustainable practices, maybe optimizing global food production and distribution, revolutionizing recycling systems while simultaneously minimizing its own resource consumption and waste. This requires that adaptive governance framework we talked about, but applied to AI's entire life cycle, from design and training to deployment and eventual decommissioning, ensuring it contributes to a flourishing planet, not just a potentially more efficient, but still unsustainable, human society. So, to sum up our deep dive today, human tensions are profoundly interconnected, stretching from the individual tug-of-war in our own minds, fueled by biases, all the way to vast global conflicts driven by inequality and resource scarcity. Rules have been our species' primary attempt to manage these tensions, but rule-breaking persists, driven by inherent drives and those persistent cognitive patterns. Artificial intelligence is emerging as an incredibly powerful, transformative force with immense potential for human flourishing, yet it also carries significant risks of amplifying our existing vulnerabilities if it's not developed and deployed with wisdom and foresight.
Yeah, that really captures it. Our path to a best possible scenario, to building a flourishing future, as this study suggests, seems to hinge on a conscious, deliberate human-AI coevolution. This means focusing on human-centric AI design technology that genuinely enhances human connection and critical thinking, not replaces it. It means building robust ethical governance frameworks that prioritize transparency, fairness, and accountability. It requires embracing an integrative, systemic understanding, using AI to reveal those complex feedback loops we've often missed, and cultivating adaptive intelligence, where AI truly augments human cognition, our collective wisdom, and our ethical decision-making.
That's a great summary. So maybe the final thought to leave our listeners with today is this. If AI can indeed help us better understand the often unwritten rules of both human nature and the natural world, what new unwritten rules might we need to collaboratively develop with AI to truly achieve that balanced and flourishing coexistence, both amongst ourselves as humans and with the planet rules that perhaps weren't explicitly codified or even imaginable in our past?
This is DigitView.